Thank you very much for joining us on this event this early morning. I would like to express my respect and appreciation to the Holy See, to His Eminence and his team to organize and host this meeting together about a very pressing and challenging issue of current history, and I think it's extremely important that this setup puts this issue on the agenda of the General Assembly as a side event. We attach a great significance to be able to highlight the importance of the protection of the Christian communities worldwide. That's why we thought it would be important to come together this morning. And here I'm sitting close to you, opposite to you, as a proud representative of a Christian country with a history of over a millennium. And the reason we have thought about putting together this meeting is that we would like to address the challenge of how to protect the persecuted religious groups all around the world. Among them, we have to address the extremely quickly rising Christianophobia globally. We see Christianophobia as an extremely dangerous trend. According to statistics, 4 out of every 5 people who are either killed or persecuted because of religious belief are Christians. And in many areas and many regions of the globe, there are terrible crimes committed against religious communities and many times against the Christians. If we look back to the recent couple of years and we look back to armed conflicts of global significance, we see that as a consequence of them, thousands had to leave their homes, and there were religious communities, among them, once again, Christians, which were totally eliminated. The increasing extremism became a massive international challenge. War and instability make millions of people to leave their homes, which in turn increases definitely the migratory pressure on Europe, and therefore cooperation and extensive exchange with the countries of the Middle East on counter-terrorism and migration could not be more important than currently. At the same time, we have to do our utmost to refocus our attention to support of the victims and endangered communities, religious communities in the region. As countless brutal acts have clearly demonstrated in the past years, Christians in the Middle East are especially targeted by ISIS because of their religion. In fact, the extremist goal is clear: to cleanse and eliminate Christians from the face of the Middle East as if they had never existed there. This makes it even more important to keep this issue on the agenda and avoid double standards when it comes to recognizing persecution of Christians. I have to tell you that we are proud that Hungary deployed 200 troops to the Middle East, to Iraq, to fight against ISIS in the framework of the US-led global coalition. And we will maintain this contribution of ours because we understand that ISIS, the activities and the brutal acts of ISIS are among the most significant reasons why religious communities are threatened, eliminated, and forced to leave their homes. If we put into consideration what is happening there, we see that churches built in the 5th and 6th century are being bombed. Religious communities are being eliminated. People are being hunted and killed and forced to leave their homes. If you put into consideration that in Mosul in Iraq, a couple of years ago, there were 60,000 Christians living, and there were more than 45 Christian churches. in Mosul, and all of these, almost all of these, unfortunately, were demolished. And you know, for some reason, the world, especially the Western world, deals with this phenomenon in an extremely hypocritical way. This hypocritical way of addressing this issue may create a false and a very dangerous perception, as if Christianophobia would be the last acceptable form of any kind of discrimination. And this is entirely and absolutely unacceptable. You know, once on a Foreign Affairs Council meeting, I just give you a personal experience, I was sitting next to a foreign minister coming from a northern European country. And as she was speaking about, you know, the persecution against religious communities, she mentioned quite some of them, but not the Christians. And I asked her, okay, now the circle is relatively narrow. And I asked her, so why didn't you mention Christians? And the answer was, you know, because we are many of us, we are robust in quantity, so by definition we cannot be persecuted and we cannot complain. And you know, this is something that we find very dangerous as an approach, and this is something that we find unacceptable. And if you look at the conclusions and resolutions or declarations of international organizations, you will hardly find the expression there, persecution of Christian communities, to be mentioned. We usually speak about protection of many various religious communities, but not the Christians. And I think we have to change this approach because, yes, we have to take care, we have to protect all religious communities. But this should not end up in a situation when all the communities are being mentioned except for the Christians. That's why we have two proposals. One, that number one, that we urge the International Criminal Court not to leave unpunished any crime committed against the religious communities in the crisis regions of the world. The culture, the phenomenon of impunity must be finally over, and double standards must not be applied there. And crimes against humanity must be punished. That's why Hungary has been supporting from the very beginning the initiative of international independent and impartial mechanism, and we contribute to the financing of the initiative. And we really do think, and we are certain, that the financial resources of the operation of this mechanism should be included in the budget of the United Nations. And second initiative of ours is that the international community should and must guarantee the right of the Middle Eastern Christian communities to return to their homes as soon as the conflicts are over, and guarantee their security there as living there. We have a very sad experience that Christians either cannot or not allowed to return to their homes because of security reasons, even after the liberation of those given territories. That's why we call for establishing kind of administrative zones in the Middle East where safety and security of the returning religious communities would be guaranteed. And here we would count on the robust presence of the United Nations. Your Eminence, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, the horrible conflicts like Syria, Libya, other conflicts in the Middle East can only be totally successfully resolved if all religious and ethnic groups feel themselves in safety and security. And if they are given the right of self-government and the right to take part in the responsibility of the leadership of their countries. That's why we respect those countries in the region which do a lot in order to guarantee the security of the religious communities, like Egypt. Egypt is currently under very heavy international criticism, even in the United Nations. And Egypt and the current leadership of Egypt does a lot in order to protect the Christian communities, the Coptic Christians there. And another point which I would like to make here is I understand a huge dilemma, even within our, let's say, church as well. Whether we should help the persecuted members of religious communities to leave their homes and come, for example, to Europe, or we should contribute to help them to be able to stay where they live and guarantee their security there, contribute to the phenomenon to restore their rights where those rights were violated. And there, based on the requests of the leaders of the Christian communities in the Middle East, Hungary has been contributing a lot in order to help Christian communities to be stronger where they live and give them many support. Hungary helps, and in order to be able to help, the Hungarian government established a separate state secretariat, which has only one duty and one responsibility: to monitor the destiny of the Christian communities all around the world. And if we see any persecution, if we see any bad developments, then we are brave enough and not shy and not modest to speak about that and even be loud about that. We finance the construction of a Christian school in Erbil with 400,000 euros. We donated almost 2 million euros to reconstruct houses of 200 Christian families in Terskov, Iraq. We donated €500,000 to the St. Joseph Hospital to cover their costs, to cover their medical costs, and given €1 million to carry out humanitarian activities by the Antiochian Syrian Catholic Patriarchate in Lebanon. And we decided to finance reconstruction of 30 churches in Lebanon, because we want to make sure that it will be showed very clearly that these religious groups who were persecuted are not only having past and presence in that region, but future as well. And in order to strengthen our communities there, we offered 100 scholarships annually for kids coming from, or for youngsters coming from persecuted families, so they get the necessary knowledge, the skills, and then they can return to their homes and can contribute to strengthen their communities. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Eminence, persecution of religious groups, among them Christians, we have to keep it on the agenda. Because if we don't speak about that, no one will speak about that. And that's why we are committed to work together in the future with you. And in October, between the 11th and 13th of October, we are organizing an international consultation in Budapest, where we look forward to host the leaders of the Middle East religious communities in order to find out how we can further give help and assistance to them in order to restore their rights and guarantee a security for them. Once again, we appreciate that you have accepted our invitation, and we are excited to look forward to have a dialogue about this very pressing issue. Thank you very much.